This afternoon, and it's fun because I'm seeing faces that I talked with as recently as today and yesterday. So it feels like I'm coming home to the family. So thank you for joining. We're going to give a couple more minutes to let people come in. If you can, if you would change your name, please keep your name and then add the chapter that you're affiliated with. And so if you look at your little picture, there are three dots in the upper right-hand corner. You are going to hit that. The bottom of the list, you'll see rename, and then your name will show up the way it does, and you just can put like dash, like PBC Florida. Thank you. Or Traverse City or LTB. Um, so that will help kind of keep so that when you say something brilliant, initially everyone will say, "What chapter are you from?" And they won't have to say that because they'll know. Or if you ask a question or you're sharing other relevant information, it really helps. I will also tell you that we expect to have 28 chapters on this call. And so identifying your name and your chapter also helps people to really connect with women who are in other places. So, really, really nice to see you all. I'm going to keep an eye on the waiting room, and with Haley and Lori's help, we will make sure that no one gets stuck out there in the great abyss. This is June, and it is our last chapter chat until the fall. What we hear from you time and time again is that summertime, as busy as you might be with Impact 100 work, is also a time when you're traveling or you've got house guests coming in or your schedule's disrupted, whether you've been out of school for 40 years or whether you've been out of school for 4 days. The summertime tends to really mix up our schedules. And so this is why we take a pause. Fear not, your team at Global will still be working. So if something comes up over the next several months before our next chat, you don't have to worry about saving your questions until then. We are always available, and that could mean hopping on a Zoom, or it could mean an email correspondence or anything else that helps you get the information you need when you need it. Now, you all are a very curious group. We have a lot of questions to cover. And so, what I'm going to do is start in the normal way. For some of you, this might be your first chapter chat. The rest of you might be able to give this opening spiel as if you're me. And so, wherever you fall into that continuum, you are very welcome. When you registered, you were asked to submit a question. And then what we do is we group the questions together sort of by topic. Now, we don't always get them exactly right. So I will at some points think that I've answered all the membership questions, and then I'll find one later down the page. So my error and no one else's. Your questions were perfect. They just sometimes don't get categorized in the right way for this brain to operate. So I am going to start with membership. Membership is typically the biggest subject matter that y'all have questions about. And so although many of these are asking very similar questions or the same questions in different ways, so I will blend them all together because we have a lot of them. So one question we have is about participation rates of members. And do chapters have difficulty getting your members to be more involved, particularly in your focus area committees, your grant review teams? This is both a membership question and a marketing question. When you're out inviting women to join, if you say things like, if your lead are things like, It's a no guilt organization. You get to design your own experience. Just write a check, come to the annual awards celebration and vote, and that's all you have to worry about. You will end up attracting women for whom they only want to give you your check and show up at the end. If your marketing sounds more like involvement in Impact 100 will change your life, when you serve on a focus area committee, you learn about the needs of our neighbors that we might not have ever realized, but more importantly, we learn about the incredible superheroes working in our own area diligently to solve these problems and to meet those needs. What you promote is ultimately what you get. Now, all that is to say that the members' ability to design their own experience, to opt out, is one of the most important pillars of the work that we do and the way that the model was created. And you still want those members who literally can only write a check and maybe show up to the annual meeting, or maybe vote by absentee, or gasp, maybe trust that all of you in your chapters have done such good vetting that in fact, they'll just let you vote. It's not a sign of a disgruntled member. It is simply letting their ability to exercise that right, to choose their involvement, that can give us all as hardworking volunteers a little bit of heartburn as we worry that these members are disconnected. Now, remember from our research a few years ago, what we also know to be true is that for women who are not engaged, all it takes is one or possibly two. It's actually 1.5 events technically, but so 1 to 2 events that are mission driven is all it takes to take someone who is unengaged and not involved, not feeling connected to the mission, to becoming fully invested in the mission. And so the key things, if you have a large number of your members who are not volunteering, is think about how you can change up your marketing, because that will really help you. But also, you want to really go out of your way to explain what the work is that you're doing and to encourage them. If you've got a virtual option for your annual awards celebration, if they can come in person, if they can have coffee, even virtually, with someone on your team, you want to offer those things. And when or if a member says, I'm good, I'm happy, I'm going to keep becoming a member, these are my people, thank you, but no thank you, respect that and listen to them. Because what we don't want is our eagerness to get every member involved somehow result in a member saying, well, gosh, they said I could design my own experience, but they don't seem to be comfortable when I do design my own experience. So as leaders, this can be a little bit of a tightrope walk. The question was fully around getting more people involved, and truly that's tied primarily to how you promote the membership. Tied to that, we had a lot of questions about member retention. And so I go back to the best way to retain a member is to get her engaged in the mission. Doing we're going to meet on the beach and walk as a chapter is not the kind of retention activity that is going to change the needle. It's got to be mission focused. So it might be, we're going to have a cooking class while one of our grantees talks about the impact of the funding we provided, and they've got a catering service that is actually giving us the cooking class. Maybe they're making a mission moment. It can be fun, it can be social, but tie it to the mission Otherwise, it's going to take a lot more than just individual social contacts in order to make that happen. I'm going to take a pause in case any of you on the chat have anything that they want to share about getting more members who are ready to roll up their sleeves, and or anything particular about retention and engagement. Okay, I'm not seeing hands, but there's a lot. Oh, there we go. Mara.
Hi, Wendy.
Nice to see you again.
Good to see you. I guess our question is, because we just launched, can you give us some idea for retention activities that maybe don't involve, talking to grantees? Because at this point we don't have any grantees. Tell me what kinds of mission activities, or if anyone can tell us anything that they've done that would be helpful.
That's a great question, Mara. Honestly, the meeting that you had in your home, where you invited the members to hear more about the Impact 100 story and to meet each other, is a perfect example of that. I also think that communication, starting a newsletter, if you don't already have one, if you do have one, looking at your newsletter through the lens of a new member. And we've got chapters that do amazing jobs on newsletters. We've got Loyanne from Little Traverse Bay. When I read the newsletters from Little Traverse Bay, they are comprehensive. And although there's a president's message, like most newsletters start with, the level of detail and the way they describe what's happening with membership recruitment, what our goal is, where we're going, where we want to be. But then there's something about grants, even before their grant application were open and before they were ready to take on. Their newsletter included how the grants process will work, why it's important, asking your members to share the nonprofits that they support or they feel drawn to. I read a business book a million years ago when I was in the banking business, and the overall message was everything speaks. And at Impact 100, everything speaks. Whether it is wearing lavender, which I'm not wearing lavender today. It's not your camera. It's actually my shirt. It's really blue, but it's kind of in our blue family. It's probably a bad day for me to say that. Haley, you're looking very lavender. Thank you for showing up for the team. And Lori, I can't see you, but I'm sure you are practically lavender. So you want to think about your newsletter through the eyes of a potential nonprofit applicant, a potential member, an existing member, to feel proud and celebrate. We want to make sure that no matter where you go, you might have some logo gear so that somebody might say, what's that funny design? And you can explain what the flowering sea star means. It means inviting opportunities, dialogue with people that you wouldn't know. Waiting in the line at the grocery store has been a famous way that chapters have grown their membership, because they stood in front of another woman in the checkout line, struck up a conversation, and miraculously Impact 100 came up and that person became a member. So it's really being aware that you can share the mission of other chapters, you can share grant information from other chapters, but it's walking through the process and what a difference it would make in your specific community.
Thank you.
Wendy, if I may, Maura, this is Sue Whittington. We're in South Florida.
Sue?
And we really struggled with member engagement events. And then last year we started something called Impactful Conversations. And our member engagement activities are now centered around one of the 5 focus areas. So last year we did one on arts and one on the environment. And we drew between 75 and 100 women.
Wow.
some members, some not, but at both of those we had people join. So it was mission focused, it was member engagement, and it replaced axe throwing and all the other things that we had tried to do. Our members don't need any more social outlets. They really want to be involved in a mission.
Great.
And that's a great point. Thank you, Sue, for sharing that. That is a great point. Sometimes we mix social activities with mission-focused things, and in many cases, there are communities that do a ton of social activities and do them well, but they are rare. Most often, they want mission in bite-sized pieces, and that's a great information. Thank you. We actually have a first-time person on the call who submitted a question about having our members pay their dues in installments, and so allowing for monthly payments. What I can tell you is that when you allow for monthly payments, you are opening up the world of opportunity of women in your community, because $1,000 might feel like a lot of money. However, $100 a month may not feel very bad at all. I have seen in newsletters where the chapter will say, our membership deadline is, I'll do the math that's easy, December. Remember, so that means if you want to pay in monthly installments, you have 5 months to make $200 installment to get to where you're going, get to the full membership. Or they'll say you could get it done in 3 months, or next year you want to start giving your donation now in order to have it come around. I know that some chapters call it lifelong membership. And so it positions it in a way that says, if I give you $100 a month, let's say you're a chapter that charges $1,100, it's going to take 11 months for you to get there. Even if you charge $1,200, you can still do $100. Now, bearing in mind, if they choose to pay by credit card, they're going to have to cover the credit card fees. That's just part of the deal. But if they pay it in one lump sum, they're going to pay the credit card fees. If they pay it individually, they're going to pay the credit card fees. So know that that's a thing. It's the same percentage. So they're going to pay a little bit more every month, or they're going to pay more if they pay it in full. But the math works the same. So because it's based on a percentage of what they give. But the more you do that, the more accessible it becomes for the organization. I know we've got Crawford County on, and they have done monthly for a long time. This is a beautiful community in rural Missouri where you can still get the best toasted ravioli of anywhere in the state. Their membership is lower. They're at $500. It's a very rural community. But the several chapters that are in rural, I think we have 3, they all do monthly giving so that it's easier to get more participation from their community. And they've done amazing jobs, and they've given away life-changing grants. We also had a question about, let's see, we've got more retention rates. We've got the same. So we've got a couple of questions that involve leadership. So I'm gonna take a pause and shift away from membership for a minute. We may come back to it. We had a question about how chapters manage operational consistency year over year with only volunteers. So we're talking here about succession planning, skill-based engagement, but we also have, how do you keep the knowledge, the tech knowledge, as you have leadership turnover? So there's a lot of answers to these two questions sort of blended together, and there was a third one as well that hits on the same topic. The idea is, one, You only want the right people sitting in the right chairs. And so be intentional about who you recruit to your board and how you do it. Anticipate. The farther ahead you can bring new board members on to before you, when you actually need them there, the better off you're going to be. And by that, I mean, if we know that Sally is your grants liaison, and we know that her term is going to end in 18 months, we want her to be a part of selecting her predecessor. And if we can, in 6 months, identify her successor, invite that person on the board in a vice chair position for a year, they shadow Sally. And when Sally rolls off, Susie steps in, and Susie has gotten all the information. They've worked side by side. They've gotten real-time questions answered. Now, some of you are shaking your heads like, yes, and in what world can we find that perfect person so far in advance? I will tell you that it happens, but it takes a lot of work, and you've got to focus on it. You just, in the same way that you can't gather all your membership together and believe that the nonprofits are just going to show up, they won't. If you build it, they will not come unless you give them a very direct invitation, because nonprofit leaders are pulled in a million directions. And even though you're offering a significant grant that could transform the trajectory of their organization, they are also very concerned with all the day-to-day things that they have to juggle and manage. And so they need to be invited. The same thing is true about leadership on your board. The boards who do the best have built a culture of mutual respect, a culture of accountability. No one should be in the board in name only. No one should be in the board unless they have an active role to play. And you always want to be fishing. You always want to be aware of potential new women to your community or new members to your chapter that might be just the leadership that you need. And so feel free to always be thinking about those people. Now, there are some technical things, and one technical thing that I know the Atlanta chapter uses a lot are Loom videos. You know, if you all are not familiar with Loom, it is a technology that allows you to record what you're doing on your desktop or laptop computer with your voiceover. So it says to do this, you click here, and when the link opens and someone is watching you click here, they're watching the link open, they know what to do. And so whether you've got Submittable, Foundit, Neon, Memberly, the people who do it every day and who are doing it well, once they've learned it, you need to ask them to build an explainer video. Now, for years, we've asked our board members to also list what are all the skills they use to do this job, what's their job description, and my favorite, how many hours do you anticipate you spend doing this job in an average week? All of those things, I'm sure you've asked your leadership team for at one point or another, or you will for those of you who are new to the party, and you will get gigantic eyes looking back at you like, what? How can I answer all of that? However, Loom videos, if you ask them to do that, they can absolutely do it. And so we want to make sure that you bring in, you're codifying the work that you're doing even as you're building that airplane, even as you're building the chapter. And for those of you who've been around for a while, new leadership, you often discover things that you might not have known about how things were originally set up, or you've got new hurdles to tackle that someone else were jumping over in the past, and now it's your turn, and you want to make sure you've got the right skills to do it. Global will always be here to help you, But these are the ways that you keep consistency. In an ideal world, every role should be replaced by someone who has shadowed the person in the role, ideally for one grant cycle. We don't always live in an ideal world, and there are crash courses and training that can happen. So I don't want you to get too caught up about it, but the further ahead you can plan, the better. Which is tied to a question about best practices for taking a chapter to the next level of growth. This is the ultimate question of almost every leadership team in every chapter. We're all looking for ways to take us to the next level. And so the best ways to do that, I hate to say this to a group of leaders, but I'm also proud to say to this group of leaders that the success of the chapter largely rises and falls on the leadership team. If you've got a large, capable, diverse, strong board of women who are all passionate about the work, eager to help it grow, you are way more than halfway to whatever that next growth level is. Often when we talk about growth, we might be talking about more members, getting up above whatever level we've settled on. And I think that's great. The more grants you give away, the more people that are in your membership, the stronger and more buttoned up your board needs to be. And so often when chapters are growing, they might grow. We've got chapters who have gone from 200 to 400 to 600 to, fast. And when you're in the middle of that growth, you're just moving. You're just getting stuff done, and your team is in somewhat synchrony, chaotic synchrony, but you are in synchrony in working through all the things. You're almost muscling through it. But there will come a point when you'll all catch your collective breath and say, okay, now, what exactly is your role on the board? Like, originally we called you X, but you've been doing X, Y, Z, P, and Q. How can we take some of the burden from you, separate it out into a few other people, and start to grow our board? This is particularly true of founders, founding presidents, but it can be true of that vice president that when she sees something that needs to be done, she gets it done. If she sees something that's missing, she makes it. Those women often are quietly doing the job of 3 or 4 or 5. And so you want to make sure, if you want to grow, look to the top of the house first. Make sure that you've got the right people in the right seats, and make sure that you are a unified front in this plan to grow. That we don't ever want to assume that everyone who's on the board has the same goal as the leader or the membership director or the grants liaison, because it doesn't always happen that way. So once they're also on the same team, take a look at your systems. How can you improve your systems so it would take less from you? How can you make them repeatable? How can you grow them to be more robust? And then you go. Now, what I've just described, some of you might be thinking, oh yeah, we didn't do it that way at all. We just decided we wanted more members. And so we just all really leaned in hard on the membership committee, and we all pulled in our friends and neighbors and colleagues and acquaintances and XXXs. But that's not, and that can work, but that's not the way in an ideal world you do it. Ideally, you'd build that scaffolding before you start walking out on that plank. But however you do it, You always want to be clear and stay focused on the mission. The best way to grow, whether it's nonprofits or membership, is to consistently tell the Impact 100 story, your story that is specific to your chapter, as well as where you fit into the global jigsaw puzzle of Impact 100 chapters, because that is what's most important. Sometimes a new leader comes in or a new initiative starts, and there's temptation to, call it a new thing or make up this new activity, and everything has a name. And it depends. Are those things backing up and providing consistent explanation for who you are as an Impact 100 chapter, or is it confusing? I will tell you this. Y'all know, I'm sure, Impact 100 Pensacola Bay Area is the world's largest chapter. They started with 200 members at a time when every other chapter that had launched only started giving away one grant. They started giving away two. And their thought was, look, we know we want to get to 5, so why would we start with 1? Let's get a running start and start with 2, funding 2 grants. By the time they were approaching their 10th anniversary, they had eclipsed 500 and 600 and even 700 members. And so their 10th anniversary, they were like, wouldn't it be cool if our 10th anniversary, we got 1,000 members and we could give away $1 million? Now, I talked to the Pensacola chapter a lot through all of those years, and certainly a lot during that year. Spoiler alert, they made it, of course. They did reach 1,000 members. But what's really interesting after the fact is that about half the board thought, we're doing this for the 10th anniversary, but we're going to settle back down into something south of 1,000, and we're just going to kind of ride that off into the sunset. Well, that's not the way the story ends. The next year, they were bigger and bigger and bigger, and now they're in their 22nd year, and they're all the way to 1.2. I think by their 15th year, they were 1.1. By their 20th year, they'd hoped to be 1.2. They just shy, but their 21st or 22nd year, they surpassed it. So, but everybody was rowing in the same direction. Whenever I come into Pensacola, I typically fly, sitting on a small airplane, going to a small airport. Inevitably, I'm sitting next to a local. Why am I coming to Pensacola, they ask. My answer is always the same. Have you ever heard of Impact 100? Fully expecting to hear an Impact 100 story. So far, apparently no one who flies airplanes home to Pensacola has ever heard of Impact 100 Pensacola. If there are banners all over town, there are billboards. Pensacola is a small town. They've been around. And you know what else? They followed the model to the last degree. They follow it completely. They communicate consistently. And yet, not everyone who lives in Pensacola knows about them. Don't assume everyone who lives in your community, your defined geography, knows about you. You don't need new ways to tell the story. You need to keep telling the story and keep inviting people in to the future that you're building. Those are key elements. I'm going to pivot a little bit away from membership directly because I have so many other questions to cover. But is there anything related to membership that anybody wants to share or quickly ask?
Wendy, okay, I was going to make just one quick point about operational consistency, and this may seem like a kind of a no-brainer, but I think when boards get busy and everybody's just trying to do the work, you forget. I think it's good to remind your board chairs that when they're drafting planning documents, when they're drafting emails, they should be saving all that information in somewhere that's accessible to your whole board and not just on their computer, so that you have that in future years to look back to. It's amazing. I think we've in Atlanta sort of half the board does it and half doesn't, but there's such great information on certain categories because people make the effort to put it in Google Drive, and then others that don't. So it's just a good reminder to tell your board, remember, I know you're doing all the work. Please put it somewhere that we will be able to refer back to it. So just a quick reminder.
Terrific. Thank you. Mara?
I just had a quick follow-up because with regard to the installment payments, just because I maybe misunderstood and I think I was told something else, but aren't all installments to be made by the end of the member drive so that you're announcing the accurate amount?
Yes, 100%. Yes.
Oh, okay, good, fine. Because I thought you were saying over like 12 months, and I'm thinking, well, how do we do that? So that's
Well,
confused.
yeah, absolutely. Depending on where anybody is in their grant cycle and when their membership cutoff is, that number of months is going to change. But big picture, if you don't have their full, and this is a potential downside to if it's anything less than an automated monthly payment, you want to automate it. You will often have, before we had the ability to automate monthly payments, we would have members who would say, I want to pay you $200 now because I have it, and then I'm going to pay you the rest when I get it. And we would actually put in writing, and I suggest you do as well, it is the responsibility of the member to make sure that her payments are all fully complete no later than whatever your membership cutoff date is. And that if your membership is not fully funded, you will be recognized as a friend of Impact 100 for that year, not a member.
Okay.
And the friend money, for those of you who are unfamiliar with that language, helps to cover administrative costs of the chapter. And they're very important. But you want to make sure if you've got automated payments, it's likely going to happen unless someone's credit card gets compromised. I mean, there are things that you want the onus of responsibility on the member, not on the organization, to chase down those payments and to make sure that everything is going smoothly.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you. Okay. We have some other questions. Oh, here's a simple one. How many impact chapters are there worldwide? And how do we use this information to advertise the scope and tenacity of impact? I love the word tenacity. So I thank you for that. So the reason that we have the Global Day of Impact every year, so it's the first Thursday in November, always. We created the Global Day of Impact as a movement-wide global celebration of chapters and members around the world for that year. So we chose the first Thursday in November because November is the giving month. It's the kickoff of the giving season. It's known for its philanthropy. It is when Thanksgiving happens, and it's close to the calendar year end. And part of what we do at Global is we reach out, and here's a little hint. You could send us your data in advance, and we won't reach out to ask you for your data, but we will reach out to every chapter and ask for your data. And the data that we ask for is how many members this year, which translates to how many grant awards, the year you were formed, and the amount of money cumulatively you've given away. Now, we ask some other questions too, and we also ask for some images from your last grant cycle. And what we do on the Global Day of Impact is we tally all of that up, and we share with the world in a celebration that takes place virtually and in person the impact of Impact 100. If you go to our website under events, you will see a video from our Global Day of Impact celebration in Milwaukee last year. This year, we are going to be in Southern Indiana. But we go and we celebrate with our host chapter. They help us to create the agenda, but it is at that event when we announce how many chapters we have, how much money we've given away cumulatively. And so as of the 2024 Global Day of Impact, we had 76 chapters. We had given away almost, and when I mean almost 160 million, it was literally 159 million and a lot of other big numbers. So we were very close to 160 million. Since then, however, chapters have grown. Some chapters have launched. We will have some chapters due to the economic uncertainty, which is definitely also represented in some of these questions. We also have some chapters whose membership either sort of stayed static, even went backwards a little bit, gained fewer than they thought they would. And so this economic climate, coupled with horrific hurricanes and other severe weather, has affected different areas in different ways. We were talking, we've had a huge influx of communities that want to start their own chapter. Like, it's incredible. The count is really high. Some of you who've been around for a little bit know that we used to include in the Global Day of Impact the stats on how many chapters were in formation. Now, bear in mind that there are only 52 weeks in a year, and it's rare that we have a week go by. No, I take that back. We did have a little slump, which we're not sure whether our website wasn't working or people just somehow couldn't find us. But typically we get inquiries about new chapters almost weekly. And every one of those new chapters gets email correspondence and then gets a one-on-one video. And so we used to sort of the standard, and there are more than 50 chapters in formation. We stopped saying that. A couple of reasons why. And that is that the ones that might reach out and think they want to start, they may not actually follow through, or they may stumble, or it might take them 3 years or 4 years to really launch. That number becomes sort of meaningless. And so, although I can tell you today that we have lots of inquiries of new chapters, that we feel super excited about what's on deck, we will hold off giving an updated number until the Global Day of Impact. Now, how you share that is, people really care that their money is staying local, and that by joining your Impact 100 chapter, the money will be pooled together and it will stay right there in your defined geography. That's critical. It's also critical who's on your leadership team. Members of the community, whether they're nonprofits or individuals who are debating whether this is an organization for them to join or for them to apply to, they're going to look at your leadership team. And they're going to wonder whether their interests are reflected there. How diverse is your membership? Are you representing the full, mirroring the demography of your defined area? And so that's going to be a piece that they're going to look at. They're also going to wonder, what does this mean in the greater context of the world? And it's really important that when you tell your local story, you also tell the global story, because in many ways, it makes the work you're doing that much more remarkable. And I selfishly I want every one of your members, you all have heard me talk that $1,000 is a stop and think gift. And it is. Even for someone who's very wealthy, when you ask them to join your impact chapter with a check for $1,000, they may hesitate. They may think for a minute. And it is in that moment that they get connected to the gift. And when they are connected to the Impact 100 gift, they are also connected to the $100,000 you give away or the multiple hundreds of thousands. And I want them to feel connected to the almost $160 million. Because without every single one of your members, you wouldn't make the grants you make. You wouldn't transform the community the way they are. And we wouldn't be able to, on the first Thursday of November, talk about the impact and the transformation. And so I think that is the best way to do it. And to understand, one of the things I love about the Impact 100 brand package is the wallpaper and the icons that you all choose to represent your community. It's so beautiful and it's so personal. And no matter where I look, seeing the uniqueness of each chapter, and those chapters who are not currently following the branding, I still like to see your defined personality. What I want your members to see is that they're a part of something really big right there, and they're a part of something really big that has global ramifications. And so the best way to do that is to know those numbers. So if you ever want to know, they're always on our website. We do host in local areas. So if you ever want to be the host, we can talk about that moving forward. You can have your own event, whether you live stream what's happening at Global, or whether you have your own and it finishes with an announcement of how big the whole piece is up to you. But by celebrating your local impact combined with the global impact, it really does open up the world to even those members who are not actively involved in your chapter, but whose $1,000 have made a difference every single year. Okay, we are down to very little time. So I'm going to start doing, as if this was not rapid fire, I'm going to do some rapid fire. We had a question about how chapters found corporate sponsorships. I'm going to start, and then if any of y'all had good sponsorship solutions and strategies, I want you to either put them in the chat, which I can't ever read when I'm doing this, but we will secure them and we'll put them in with the recording, or, raise your hand and say, here's how we do it. Start from the inside out and the top down. So again, look at your board. Who's your board tied to? Who do you know? Where do you shop? Where do you bank? Where do you work out? Who's your accountant, your lawyer? What businesses do you frequent? What neighbors do you use? All of those things start with people that you're already giving them business. They already know you because of who you are in the community or who you are to their firm. You can also, great opportunity for the men in your life who keep saying, how do I get involved in Impact 100? Honey, you can be a sponsor because we would love to have your financial support for the things that matter to women in our community and to nonprofits who serve the needs of all aspects of our community. So you want to start there. I will also sort of back that up. This question is particularly about corporate sponsors, but I would be remiss if I did not say, please, before you go after corporate sponsors, please go after Friends of Impact. Remember, friends, they stick up for each other. They help each other. They don't have an expectation of getting anything in return. They support you because they believe in you. They are your friends. This is the inner circle of supporters. And you want them, whether they're a huge business, a small business, a family, or a single individual, you need friends first. Only when you feel like you've exhausted the friends do you start looking for corporate sponsors, or you specifically look for sponsors for very particular things like your annual awards celebration, annual meeting, or new technology you need. You could look for a certain sponsorship or grant to help you cover the cost of doing business as a nonprofit. So there are ways to use those corporate sponsorships, but please, for your own sake, you want to make sure that you've got a robust friends program. When you've approached the people that are in your inner circle, and by you, I mean everyone on your leadership team, people you're connected with, etc., you also want to look at those companies who will be helpful for an in-kind gift. So some of the easiest in-kind gifts are things like printing for your annual meeting or printing for your signage, some of the things that you need. Why? You've got at least 100 women, and I'm looking at all you chapters that are well above 500 women and counting. You've got women who will print graduation announcements, holiday cards, retirement parties, weddings. We have a need to print. If everyone in the impact community knows that Joe's Printing on Main Street has covered the cost of all of these printed materials, maybe they're going to shop at Joe's for their printing needs instead of at somebody else. So you want to go to those organizations that can give you something in kind, knowing that it would help them and it would help you. Same thing is true for floral arrangements or decor at your annual award celebration. So the things that you need that people can provide in kind is plan B. All right, I'm going to pause. You can either put it in the chat, or if anybody has anything to add to that. Okay, I'm not seeing. So I'm going to keep the rapid fire going. Building, this is a question involving how we build connections in the nonprofit community. Hugely important question. You have to do it aggressively, meaning with intention. What I often say is if you imagine the energy that your chapter puts in every year to your membership drive, you want to put at least that much attention in your relationship with the nonprofits. Let me tell you why. Imagine a scenario where your membership team has done an amazing job of meeting the goal that you all set. Maybe it was to fund 5 grants this year. Maybe it was to fund 3. Maybe it was to fund 8. You've reached your goal. You're all exhausted. You worked hard. It's worth it. Your big reveal is the best day because you celebrate your successes and everybody leaves feeling great. And then the nonprofit applications come in, and your focus area teams don't have very many to look at. And they can't find a worthy applicant. Okay, now if you had 8, you need 10 finalists. So if you had 800 members, you need 10 finalists, 2 in every category. If you can't get 2 finalists in each one of your focus area committees, you're going to have a much bigger problem. If you can't put forth worthy nonprofits who will make good use of your members' investment to transform the community, That's the biggest problem, because nonprofits are why our women join. We say they join because of the model. They do. They join because of you as a leader. They absolutely do. But they're doing it because they want to multiply their $1,000 into 100,000, 200, 300, whatever your membership level is. They want to be a part of transforming the community. They can only do that if you get strong applicants, and plenty of them. So for any of you who are losing sleep about your member number, sorry to add, focus on your nonprofits. You must gather every single year applicants, those who applied in the past and didn't get it, those who applied in the past got it but have surpassed, if you have a waiting period for them to reapply, they've done whatever met your eligibility requirements. You need to keep inviting them back.
Wendy on the phone.
And in the same way that you would keep on inviting your members to come back, keep asking your members, you need to keep active in the community. The other thing to do is always ask your members to help you. In the same way that you invite your members to bring a friend to your membership drive, or to tell their neighbor, or host a coffee, or whatever you ask them, every time you're in front of your members, you want to ask them, are there nonprofits in the community we should know about? Who are they? The other thing, this is where membership can work hand in hand with your nonprofit liaison, and that is, look at the boards of local nonprofits and look for the women and invite the women to become members of your chapter. If a woman serves on a board, even if she's the chair of a local nonprofit and she's a member, she can still vote. She can still participate. We can talk at another time about, conflict of interest issues, but this is not a conflict of interest if she serves on the board. And so it's a great way to spread the word. Often, a woman who serves on one nonprofit board, this is likely not her first rodeo. And she likely have served on other boards, or she's volunteered in other places. And you want to get to know all of those contacts so that the net can be cast widely to attract nonprofits. Chapters do brainstorming sessions with nonprofits. Chapters certainly do information sessions and training about how to do your, how to fill out your grant application, your deadlines, upload the documents. But you want to actively do that. If you're a launching chapter, the sooner you identify focus area chairs that have knowledge about each one of the 5 focus areas, the better. Those individual focus area chairs should be able to reach out to the demographic that they're assigned to. It's never too early to start recruiting and having conversations with potential grant applicants and saying to them, this is how it works. We're going to gather at least 100 women. We're all going to give $1,000. We're going to invite applications across 5 broad focus areas. And it's 1 member, 1 donation, 1 vote. We democratize philanthropy and we all vote. Now, if I'm a nonprofit and I'm like, my board is filled with women, I want them all to join. They can all join. Your member number goes up. They're happy. 5 people on a board, 12 people on a board, they're not going to sway your vote. If they all join, there are lots of ways to grow, but you need to be intentional about it. You need to have a plan. You can start with the list from United Way, from the Community Foundation, corporate foundations, all of those things, but you definitely want to stay focused on them and make sure that your board pays attention throughout the year. So we are at the top of the hour, but I'm going to pause on that today. Anybody want to add anything on nonprofit liaison, staying in touch, attracting strong applicants? Y'all are good. Okay. Okay, I'm going to end on a high note. What is one thing you've seen strong chapters do really well as they grow? Great question, hard question, because it's not one thing, like there's a lot of things. But I would say consistency of message, sharing mission moments. This is like a run-on sentence of a one thing. Staying true to the model. I can tell you after 23 years of experience, the more you follow the model, the more successful you will be. But so you definitely want to do that. And you want to stay consistent in your communication. And you want to be careful when you send out member surveys and you ask them all the things that we want to know about, did they like this and what do they think about that? Interpreting your member surveys not as things you need to change, but as things you need to better communicate. Because 99 times out of 100, where the disconnect grows is a lack of understanding. And so when members don't understand and they submit something in a survey or in one-on-one feedback, your head should be alarming, saying, how could we have communicated how we operate better? And it's that continuous improvement that can make all the difference. So I thank you, each and every one of you, for joining us today. For those of you who submitted questions, I thank you. We will be working all summer if and when you need us, but this will be our last chat until September. And then holy mackerel, we've got September, then we've got October. That would be the global conference. Hopefully I'm going to see all of y'all in the Panhandle of Florida, where we have an amazing lineup. And then it's the Global Day of Impact, and then it's practically next year. So I'm feeling like the calendar is moving too fast, but I thank you for all the work you do and the significant difference that you're making. And I can't wait to see you all on the screen or in person very soon. So thank you, and take good care.